He's CEO of non-profit companies and as an anthropologist. Currently, he is CEO of the Nature Clicks Institute, Islamabad, and executive director of an upcoming first of its kind university for the handicapped, Al-Masdar Special Education Trust University in Pakistan. Dr. Nasir, please. Syed.
Dr. Nasir, your microphone is mute. Microphone, Dr. Nasir.
Dr. Nasir.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Now you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
السلام عليكم. أنا سيد محمود ناصر من الإسلام آباد وبكلم اللغة العربية لأنني درست في القاهرة في السنوات الأولى والآن ما عندي تمرين ومراجعة كثيرة لكن أكلم باللغة الإنجليزية. صاحب السمو الملكي والأساتذة الكرام مرحبا. I will be not talking in the academic sense. I have been a practitioner and I have been seeing these things in action, biospheres, biodiversity, and how to translate that into field practice. And for that, let me please shut down the second one. Now, for that, I am coming direct to a practical problem, one of many that I have seen in the field. With biosphere reserves, we feel that there are stricter laws for the protected areas, and with biosphere reserves, we have a way out to get out of the strict laws, allow mining and converting them into zones without adequate national legislation. This is a problem in many of the OIC countries that I have seen. Now coming direct to the topic of today, His Excellency the Prince has also mentioned, and many other learned professors, including Dr. Iqbal Chaudhary, about climate change and biodiversity, Yes, and things are happening in this world, and the academic world takes note of that, and then by the time remedial actions are coming, the things have gone far away. I will refer to the many resolutions passed by the apex bodies of the UNESCO Man and Biosphere meetings, and also the World Conservation Congress of the IUCN, where there are 1,000 plus resolutions pending to be implemented by the academia or the practitioners worldwide. And climate change and biodiversity is one of them. And what I have, the topic I have selected today is also a paper that I got published despite my multiple jobs, is about the classification of ecosystems. Ecosystem classification has a history from the last century. And because of my background in anthropology and deeply in social sciences plus the natural sciences, we know that in the anthropology, we say that all this science, the anthropology of science, is human construct. And the concept of ecosystems is also a construct which is never ultimate, and it is subject to changes. And it is being changed since the last century. and the classification of ecosystems is a very hot topic. And in this current era, there is the issue of knowing what climatic changes are happening and how will they impact the biological diversity, both flora, fauna, microflora, bacteria, fungi, and the lower living forms like bacteria, fungi. Science has described only 3% of them by now. Even the mammals are only 26% described by science. So where we stand and how much funding we are having for this, how many personnel we have, this is one issue. So coming back to the Holdridge life zone classification system, over the last century, the same type of vegetations were being classified and made into groups. Köppen finalized it in 1936, and then Holdridge came in the 60s, that all, instead of going to an ecosystem and describing its animals, plants, and climatic conditions, you don't need to do anything, just understand three factors: the precipitation, the temperature regime, and the evaporation. And there is I will try to show in the screen from my published paper, 38 life zones of the world have been classified. So what is the beauty of this system is that you find the same pattern of rainfall and evaporation ratio and the temperature regime. No matter where you are, it will be the same type of vegetation, the same type of flora and fauna. These 38 life zones, we did a study in Pakistan to find that we have 27 zones. And if we keep track of all these input data into a smart system, where we know what is changing in the form of temperature, evaporation, and rainfall, we can predict what type of ecosystem is coming, what changes are coming, and that will be a wonderful addition to science and for the academia to respond to these things. My talk is very brief, and I would like to have more session on question answers, and I'll share the screen. Sorry, because there was a power shortage, failure here, closure because of the road expansion. So I'll find it and share it soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Syed. Until you finished, Syed?
Excuse me?
Did you finish?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We can entertain a few questions if you like.
Of course, welcome.
Yeah, so if anybody has a comment or a question to address Dr. Syed about what he talked about.
Hello.
Dr. Azam, please.
I just want to ask the question to the speaker. The change in the biodiversity, how is it affecting in Pakistan?
The climatic changing practices which have the change in the biological diversity is because when temperature, rainfall, and other conditions of the ecosystem change, so does the living organisms that come there. So we are observing as a practitioner, but not observing in peer-reviewed literature. So certain mammals are moving northwards because of change. So some animals we never observed in the high mountains are gradually going up upwards. And this change is going to affect the other native biodiversity to those specific areas. How it is affecting, we can have personal observations, but not much in literature.
My question was about the melting of the glaciers of the mountains. How are they affecting the water distribution in the country?
Well, we are not talking about the glaciers in the Holdridge life zone system, which I am requesting all OIC member countries at least to have that system there. For any temperature below zero is not in that, and the glaciers are minus so much. So we don't consider life in the glaciers. The impact of glaciers and glacier melt and gulfs, that is well documented, and it is very much happening. It's the impact is more in the shape of disasters rather than change of ecosystems.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, then we will move.
Can I comment, Abdullah?
Yeah.
Zabta.
Go ahead, please.
Just the last comment that Dr. Nasir, a good friend of mine, I humbly disagree that the glacier, when it melts, there's a lot of microorganisms that are preserved there. And recent study says that when glacier melts, you will face several pandemics because those microorganisms that were, there freezed for centuries. Oh my God. So, I request others to mute their mics because we.
Thank you, Dr. Zabta. If you can continue, we can hear you very well.
Yeah, but somebody else, Nizar, was not mute, so that's why. Okay. Oh my God. Mr. Nizar, please mute yourself.
Nizar, Bedat, please turn off your microphone.
Thank you. So, Dr. Nasir, what I was trying to convey is that, and I'm talking after maybe half an hour on this subject, part of the subject, that when glacier melts, a lot of microorganisms that are preserved for hundreds of years will come, and I will give you a specific example that happened in several countries that may harm the humanity. And second brief comment would be, you rightly said ecocentric, anthropogenic, and those kind of approaches that we have. Unfortunately, we humans are too selfish. It's always anthropocentric approaches. So we have to have ecocentric approaches if we want to survive. Thank you very much. And excellent presentation, by the way.
Thank you very much. The good thing about this conference and meeting with eminent professors like Dr. Zabta, one of our prides, is that we enrich our knowledge, and we find better ways forward for when practitioners, policy makers, and researchers sit on one table. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I